This video is brought to you by Miniature Market. They have thousands of board games at discounted prices at miniaturemarket.com. Hello and thanks for joining us at Game Boy Geek. For the live Q&A, feel free to just drop a question in the chat of this. And I'm so glad you're joined. I haven't had one of these in years, literally, a live stream Q&A. I've been doing some live streaming, did a lot last year and have done a few things this year, but I'm trying to get back into doing that. So this is just pretty much an opportunity for you to ask me different things that you've always wanted to know. Maybe it's about games. Maybe it's about my process of creating things for you. Maybe it's about my Kickstarter and things like that. Speaking of the Kickstarter, I did want to point out that this is one of the cool little tiles you could have gotten from my Kickstarter. This is a tile for the game called Splendor. It was first introduced maybe 3 or 4 years ago on my Kickstarter, but they sold out really fast, and people have been asking for this for a long time. So it came back this year, and so this is a cool little promo tile that's not in the main game, but you can get it through my Kickstarter. This allows you to have me as one of the nobles in the Kickstarter, and displaying this on the nice little Game Toppers mat, where they're running a Kickstarter now too at GameToppersLLC.com, where they upgrade every gaming experience. So, with that being said, there's a link below if you missed my Kickstarter that ended about a month ago. There's a link in the description of this video that will bring you right to the Kickstarter page. And then if you go where it says late pledge and you click there, you can actually pledge even though it's over for just a little bit while longer, just in case if you missed things. So yes, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and just put them right in the chat. I am going to make a little test here, make sure everything's working. Excellent. And so, this is going to be all about you, whatever you guys want to know. Seems like things are going well with the stream here. It looks like things are healthy, so we will get going here. So I've often been asked a lot about my process of how I do things. And one of the questions I get and have gotten often is about how do you go about figuring out what games that you want to review? And much like you, I'm a gamer, and I like to find games that will sit well with me, because there's so many games out there that there's all sorts of different styles and things like that. And you tend to learn about which styles you like. You tend to gravitate towards certain designers and things like that. My sort of sweet spot, if you will, is games that take about an hour to play, maybe a little longer, and have mechanisms that are pretty straightforward from a rules teaching perspective, but offer a ton of depth. Meaning, hey, this game's pretty simple mechanically. I just have these couple choices on my turn, but with that, and with the puzzly nature of the game, and with the interactions with other players, it doesn't matter if there's only a few things that you could do, really, because there's a lot of thought and a lot of reaction as to what goes on the board. So that's sort of my sweet spot. A lot of times I call it my depth to complexity ratio, meaning how deep can a game be without being very complex? Unfortunately, many games can be complex, I think, just for the sake of being complex. The hardest thing to do is actually trim a game down where you take out a lot of the complexities, but get it simple enough where it's very straightforward. And so I like those types of games. And so the ones that I try to review, those are the ones that I do a lot of research. I'm online often, and I kind of try to keep a pulse of the market and the industry as to what's coming out, what's recently come out, what's on the horizon. And I will typically reach out to publishers seeing if they'd like to send one over to see if I could possibly feature it on the channel for a review. Now, I don't review every game I receive, but I don't accept any unsolicited games, just because even with the ones that I do reach out for, I still am way backlogged. So typically I'll just I'll look for a game that I like, and I'll reach out, and usually most of the time they'll send one to me. One recently that they wanted. Let me bring this one up here. Let me get to the web here, and I'll go to let's see. Let me go to Canvas. This was a game that was a Kickstarter. It's a beautiful game. Did really well on Kickstarter. They actually have another one going on right now with the main game and the expansion. This game's kind of cool. This was one that I actually asked for a review copy for. They said, no, we're actually pretty good on reviews right now. But that's okay. So I ended up buying one anyway, and I brought it in, and this was a really cool one because you're actually making paintings. So you're actually putting these clear, transparent cards together. You're putting 3 cards together to create a painting. And they're always different. They have cool names. This one was Vast Complexity. And so there's different things you can do. And you're simply just, speaking of depth to complexity ratio, you're just literally picking a card and having a hand of cards and trying to create cool paintings that will score well depending on these colors and these icons and things like that. So that's like a short answer is to, like, you know, there's one that I did not, for example, ask for. But most of them I asked for. I very rarely get games sent to me anymore that I'm not looking for, because I've tried to make it clear with publishers that I just have too many things. And please, you know, ask me first. If you have any, if you're in the chat room, if you're watching this live, even if you're watching it not live, if you're watching it later, you know, a little bit in the future from when this is going, just go ahead and go right into the chat window, and just ask some questions there. So I was just finishing up with, so I pretty much just try to find games that I will mostly like. And that brings me to the next question is, Dan, why are most of your reviews positive? And it's, generally speaking, I'd say that's pretty true. I try, whether or not I, in the end, would recommend the game or not, I will always give a list of pros and I will always give a list of cons, regardless of how much I love the game versus how much I don't like the game. And I try to do that because just because I like something I can't assume that you're going to like it. Or if I don't like something, it doesn't mean that you're not going to like it. That reason for me not liking it might be the reason you like it. And so I always put the pros and cons so that you watching this, I try to think, if this game isn't for me, who would it be for? If this game is for me, why is it for me? And who else might it be for? Because, you know, some people have opposite tastes, and that's why you try to find a reviewer that can, you know well enough, and you know whether your tastes align with them or not. Some people, their tastes align with me, and they watch my videos a lot. Some of them have the opposite opinions. They're like, oh, if Dan didn't like it, I'll like it. If Dan liked it, I probably won't like it. And that's fine too, as long as there's consistency there and you understand that. And so that's the reason why most of my reviews tend to be ones that I would recommend. And a lot of that is because from the minute you unwrap a box to the minute that you're uploading and finishing and scheduling the video, it's literally hours and hours and hours of work to get to that point. It's more than a full day's work just on one game by the time you're done. Unwrapping the game, punching out the components, reading the rules, playing it a bunch of times, and then formulating your thoughts and doing the graphics and then doing the actual production of it and then uploading it, then scheduling it. You know, it's a huge amount of work. And naturally, I don't know about you, but I tend to like to work on things that are exciting to me. And not so much, you know, if you have a day at work and you get to work on some cool new project and something you're excited about, chances are you're going to have a little bit of pep in your step and it's going to be a lot more enjoyable for you. Same here, where it tends to be a little bit more positive than not because, when you just want to work on things, or at least I want to work on things that I'm excited about. And it's fine. And don't get me wrong. I've done plenty of negative reviews. If you go to my website, GameBoyGeek.com, and there's a table there of all my reviews, you can sort that table by rating, and you can find many games that I've rated badly and have not talked favorably for. But even when I do that, I try to say, who might this game be for? Anyways. So that's why most of my reviews are very positive. And then if I love a game, love, at this point, it gets a saxophone serenade where I play my saxophone and induct it into my gaming library. Because if I keep a game, I got to get rid of a game. And so that's one of the things. We got a question from Billy. Which games have you most been enjoying during the pandemic? Thanks, Billy, for that question. That's actually a good question. It's real because most people that I talk to have actually started getting into solo games a lot more in the pandemic because they're stuck at home, and maybe the people that happen to live in their homes don't play solo games, and so maybe that's why. For me, it was, oddly enough, it's almost the opposite. Where before the pandemic, I actually didn't mind solo gaming. And when the pandemic came, I wasn't doing as much of it because I was finding other things to fill those times where I was alone and wasn't doing work or things like that. The games that I found that I like the most through the pandemic are actually older games that I forgot that I loved. In fact, this has happened so many times that I actually created a series of videos called The Best Games I Forgot. And they're called Rediscovered Treasures. So if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see a playlist. And one of the playlists is The Best Games I Forgot. And these are the games that I've most loved. Now I'm actually going to bring it up live here. Let me bring up the web here so you can see what I'm looking at. Okay, and let's go to playlists. I'm going to go to my channel, and let's go to playlists. So under playlists, there's one here. It is Best Games I Forgot About. So I'm going to pause this. So we have. Okay, so the first one, so we had Glux, the abstract strategy game. We had Final Touch, which is a cool little card game. Cup of Cup is a speed game. Quinto is a dice, a roll and write game. Crossing is a really fun sort of player interaction. You're going to laugh your butt off all day game. Pocket Madness is sort of a rummy style card game. Finger Guns at High Noon is a party game. Matcha is a 2-player micro game, like it's a card game. Top That is a speed game. Going Gone is a party game with a little bit of thinkiness. Quick Cups is another speed game. So these are the ones that I've been really enjoying the most. And this is my best games I forgot about. And what I've found is, let's go back to Board Game Geek. What I've found in the pandemic is, again, like I actually play less solo games than I did before, which is the opposite of most people. But it's the ones that I've enjoyed the most are the ones that I'm sort of coming back to. That it's, sometimes you'll play a game that you haven't played in a while, and you'll go, this isn't nearly as good as I remembered. And at that point, it typically leaves my collection. Because if I don't love it, it doesn't stay there. But oftentimes I'll play something and I'll go, gosh, I really forgot how much I love this game. And it's a really good feeling to have because it kind of, it's like, oh yeah, this is so good. And it happens so often. So in the pandemic, I've really been able to go back to some, because there was a lot less games coming through than before in previous years. So had a chance to sort of sit down and play some of the older ones that I knew I loved, and then some of them that I did not. So we have there. So thanks, Billy, for that question. Again, if you're just joining, even in the future, go ahead and drop a question in the chat, and I will try my best to get to all of these. Gary asks, which unlock games are your favorite, and which exit games are your favorites? What they're talking about are the escape room games. So let me bring these up here. Let's see. Unlock. So they're asking about Gary's asking about the exit games and the unlock games. And these are escape room games. So I actually have not played too many unlocks because they're not my favorite of the genre. So unlock is both of these are escape room games. You're going to get together and cooperatively try to figure out puzzles. It's like you're going to an escape room, but you're not actually going to an escape room. You're just playing it on the table. And it looks like I have not rated a lot of these. It looks like I've rated just the first one. And the first one actually came with 3 adventures, and I rated it a 6. And I have played Unlock Star Wars, which I have liked. So I've actually there's a lot of these Unlock series, but I haven't played too many of them. I've played the original series and the Star Wars. So the original one came with 3 adventures. Those ones are fine. I like that one. The third one was a team one. I didn't like it nearly as much, but the first 2 I really enjoyed. And the Star Wars one was actually really good. It's a little, you'll be using the app quite a bit more in different ways, which uses the app in a very interesting ways. And I could say that if you didn't like Star Wars, you could still play this. Like if you didn't know any of the characters or anything, it's still a fun, escape room experience. But if you do like Star Wars, you'll like it even more. But it did some interesting things with the app that I really liked. I probably like this the best just because I do like Star Wars. And the other question was the Exit series games, and those are actually my favorite. They're sort of different brands of the escape room games, and these were my favorite ones. Let's see. The first one was my favorite, and this one was my second favorite. Some of these I didn't like as much. I'll tell you why in a minute. So from the escape room games, my favorite was actually the first one I ever played, and to this day, the Abandoned Cabin. This one, again, it's a sort of medium level. It's not too hard, not too easy, but it had some really clever things to do that you're trying to figure out the puzzles. And since it was the first one, that's probably why, because it was just such a new, unique thing. However, be warned that with the escape, the difference between the Unlock and the Exit series, the Unlock ones are typically not destructive, meaning you can play it again, you can pass it on to a friend. The Exit series, unless you do a lot of photocopying and stuff like that, it's destructive, meaning you wouldn't be able to play it again and you can't really pass it on. But my favorite was the Abandoned Cabin. My second favorite from the Exit series was the Secret Lab. And this is one where you're essentially like scientists in the lab and you're putting together chemicals and different things like that. So this was my second favorite Exit, which is... That one's in a different language. So yeah, this one was the Secret Lab. So that was my second favorite Exit. And were there any others? There were a couple I didn't like. The ones that are usually hard levels, I don't typically like. We have Pharaoh's Tomb. We have Forbidden Castle. Both of those were extra hard. The Sunken Treasure I liked. This was if you're new to escape room games, This would be the one I would recommend. Sunken Treasure. If you've never done an escape room game, this one was a level 2 of 5, and it was by far the easiest. I wouldn't say it was like so easy that it wasn't enjoyable, but it definitely, if you haven't done an escape room game, or you're going to do it with older children or family together, I would recommend the Sunken Treasure, because that one's my favorite of the easy ones of those. So thanks for that question, Gary. Again, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. Steve asks, which Ticket to Ride map is your favorite? Great question, because I love Ticket to Ride. So let's bring the web up here again. Let me bring up Ticket to Ride. Now, for me, it's going to depend. When it comes to like just the main base games, my favorite is still just the original, and it's because since I live in the United States, it's the one that geography wise I like. It's also the one that's most easily accessible to everyone else in this country and others, as you can just go to any store pretty much and get it. And it's, again, the familiar geography helps, but the map is really balanced, and I really love this one. And like with most maps, if you're playing 2 or 3 players, it scales to that. So this is, if someone asks me like which Ticket to Ride should I get, and they haven't played one before, I always say the USA, just the regular Ticket to Ride. Now, when it comes to expansion maps, my favorite, and again, this is going to depend on player count. So let me bring a few of these up that are my favorites. Oh yeah, I forgot about some of these. Okay. Oh yeah, I like a lot of. Oh, that's actually a smaller one. I'll bring up one. I'll bring up one of these. Let me bring up New York. So I'm scrolling through on Board Game Geek. Okay, so I got a bunch of ones to talk about. We have Ticket to Ride India, and this one has. Let's see. It had. Oh, sorry. This is Ticket to Ride Asia, and it has 2 sides. And this one is cool because it has a normal side that you play normally. But the other side is a team map, and you can play up to 6 players, and you actually sit next to your teammate. And the cool thing about that is you have some cards that are secret from your teammate, and you have some cards that you both can see, like in a holder. And there's certain cards that you can put in that holder that you both can see, and you're working towards goals together. And so it's sort of like a little cooperative game where you're putting things together, you're trying to help your teammate. So the other side that's like the normally played side, so here's a picture of the, you've got some cards and only you and your teammate can see what goals you're going for. You can put regular cards there. And it's a really interesting twist on the game. It feels like none of the other ones. So if you ever want to play a team version, it's the only one you can play up to 6 players as well. The Asian one is good. The other side of the map is okay. It's not great, but it's not the worst. It's easily playable, but I think this one, the big thing is the team version. So Asia's great. Switzerland is my favorite map if you're playing with 2 or 3 players. This map was made, you can only play it with 2 or 3, which means it is super tight. It feels congested from your first move. So Ticket to Ride Switzerland, if you like, if you're gonna play with 2 or 3 players, that's the one. Now, by the way, on the Switzerland, the other side of that map is India. So you might actually find that in the India expansion. I think it is Ticket to Ride India, and on the other side is Switzerland. Switzerland used to come on its own, but now it comes separated out. I'm actually trying to find the Heart of Africa one's good too. They're all good. So yeah, the Switzerland one I think you'll find on India. The United Kingdom and Pennsylvania, this actually is one of my favorites because the Pennsylvania one is all about, I don't actually like the United Kingdom one. It's the gamer version, but it's a little convoluted, it's a little complicated, and it wasn't my favorite. The Ticket to Ride Pennsylvania is probably one of my favorite maps, period. And it's because as you go to different routes, you're actually grabbing stock from different companies. Because if I went down this one here in Cloudersport, I could take one of these cards, and at the end of the game, whoever has the most of each of these stocks is going to get a bunch of points, and there's different amounts depending on how often they show up on the board. So it's awesome because you're just like building, but you're trying to build up for stocks. Okay, here is the India one with Switzerland, by the way. The India map's actually really cool. That looks like a hand-drawn thing. The India map is awesome because you're trying to like create these little loops. That's not it either. Oh, that's the Switzerland side. Yeah, so the India map's cool because you're trying to literally create loops and getting bonus points with that. So one of my favorites because both the India map and the Switzerland map are both awesome. The Japan and Italy is cool. Italy is just okay, but Japan, you actually build cooperatively the bullet train that any player can use. So that's cool. And okay, the last one I wanted to show you is Ticket to Ride New York. This isn't necessarily an expansion. This is a standalone Ticket to Ride game that's a tiny little board. And literally, it plays just like Ticket to Ride, but it plays in literally 10 to 15 minutes. If you're playing 2 players, it's going to take 10 minutes. It's like a miniature version of Ticket to Ride. You can get it at most stores. It's only about $20. And you can, do it right there. So Ticket to Ride New York, there's actually 2 other small box versions. There's one of London and one of Amsterdam. So if you're looking to play a 10-minute Ticket to Ride or introduce someone to Ticket to Ride without playing the 45-minute version, I would say pick that one, because that will allow you to do that like really easily. So, all right. So thank you for that. That was from Steven. Wow. Paulo says, good evening from Brazil. Thanks for joining us. Wow, it's late over there. It's like 10:30. All right, let's see. Someone asked, Jason asked if I've had any experience with the Hexplore game series. I have not played that. If anyone else in the chat has, go ahead and let us know. Again, if you're just joining us, either now live or in the future, go ahead and put a question in the chat, and I will do my best to answer them today. Ryan says he's been really enjoying the great games. I forgot about series when I was just talking about. It's a great reminder, not everything has to be about the new hotness. A great game I forgot about is Biblios. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Let me bring up Biblios because it's almost like you're a plant there, Ryan, because I literally just played this the other night. Let me bring it up here in the web. Biblios. For those that haven't played Biblios, it's a really highly ranked game. I ranked it at 9. This is one of the best quick filler card games. It's got some auctions. It's got some. It's actually about monks putting together like a scriptorium for the different types of books, but it really is kind of themeless. The theme doesn't really come through strongly, but that's not really what the game's about. What you're trying to do is there's these books, and so each book at the end of the game, there's different suits, if you will. And it's so funny that you mentioned Biblios because this is literally one of the games that would make that list, but I never forgot that I loved this one. So it would make that list. Each of these are basically suits of cards: brown, blue, green, yellow, and red. At the end of the game, you're going to add up all of the numbers that you have. For example, just to the left of this board, we see a green 2, right? At the end of the game, you're going to add up all the numbers for the suits, and whoever has the highest total numbers gets the amount of points that die is. And players are going to be manipulating these dice and making them go up or down, meaning that suit is going to be worth more or less. But some of the cards have different distributions as to what numbers are on. And the really cool thing is that you're trying to, on your turn, you're simply like picking out one card at a time and deciding whether to keep it, whether to put it in a pile that will be auctioned off later, or whether to possibly give it to the other players. And then the other players are going to draft. So it has like this really awesome press your luck aspect that you're looking at a card one at a time and deciding, do I really want this? Do I really don't want anyone to get it now and I'll save some money up for it later? Or do I want to possibly give it to other players? The other cool thing is there's cards that give you money. And these cards you'll be using in the second half of the game to try to buy things that people secretly put in an auction pile. This game is awesome. It literally is like probably one of the best 30-minute filler games out there. And it's so funny that you mentioned this, Ryan, because literally I hadn't played it in a while. And the other week I was listening to my friends, the Secret Cabal podcast with Jamie, Kiki, and gang. By the way, if you don't listen to Secret Cabal, check them out. They are awesome. They were talking about that they hadn't played it in so long, and I had recommended it to them many years ago, and they love this game. And after listening to them re-talk about it, I went, oh my gosh, it is one I want to play again. I do love that game. So I actually got it to the table last weekend, and it had probably been a year and a half until I had, the last time I had gotten that out. So thanks, Ryan, for giving us that suggestion. I'm glad you're liking that series, the best games I forgot about. The funny thing is you're right. It's not always the newer games that are going to be the best. Interestingly enough, though, it's the newer games that do much better from a views perspective. You put out content of some of these older games, and because they're already released and because they're older, they literally, regardless of how good the game is, they're just going to get less views. And a lot of that might just be because people already know about that game. So, like, maybe what am I gonna say that they don't already know about the game? Maybe they already have the game and love it, and they don't need to hear what I think about it, right? They already know they love it. So maybe that's probably why. But it would be nice if some of these older videos that I'm putting out about older content, did better, so more people could learn about these. Let's see. Oh yes, somebody wants me to close some of the browser tabs. Yeah, I've got a lot open because I've doing a lot of work around here on the channel just before this started. So let's see here. Let's close some of these browser tabs. I'll have to reopen those all tomorrow. I had some other things seeded that I wanted to show you, but I can reopen them up if I really need to. Let's see. Someone's particular about their browser tabs, so I'm closing those. So the other one should be a little bit larger now. Okay. So let's see. Let's go back. Again, if you got any questions, go ahead and put them in the comment section, and we will try our best to answer them. Let's see what else we have for questions. All right. Let's see. Someone has Jason asked a local question. He must be from Arizona. I live in the Phoenix area. Have you eaten at the Burrito Shack in Gilbert? I have not. I was in downtown Gilbert last weekend at the Level 1 arcade, which is an 80s arcade. It's amazing. In fact, the owner of Miniature Market's coming out this week, and we're going to go there on Friday night. Hey, if you're a gamer and you live in the Phoenix, Arizona area, go to the Level 1 arcade, which has pinball and all the old 80s and 90s video arcade games. And go there Friday night, and you'll see me in my Pac-Man suit, and I'll be hanging out with the owner of Miniature Market because he's coming out for a little trip to see some friends, and they're gonna hang out with me too. So let's see. I was there last weekend with my Pac-Man suit on, actually. Okay, so Cloudy with a Chance of Meeples. Okay, and they ask, what are your thoughts on the Everdell franchise? Have you ever played Everdell? So let me also, as I'm talking about this, jump into the web here. For those that don't know, Everdell is it's one of the, look at this. On Board Game Geek, it is literally the 29th highest rated game ever, which is unbelievable. This game is known for its beauty. It is absolutely stunning. Let's see here. So, I mean, even just the box art, it's adorable. You have these little creatures, and you're building this world. The game comes with this amazing, huge tree that sits on the board. That you can like grab bonus cards from, and you're putting your little people up there. But in the end, it's literally just a card drafting game. You're buying cards, you're trying to create synergies, and you're trying to, get points by putting the right combo of cards together. So it's actually, again, we talked earlier in this Q&A about the depth to complexity ratio. This game is not complex. It's pretty simple. You're simply just grabbing cards, and the game sort of scales over time. You're getting more and more turns each round. Let me get this so you can maybe see some of these. There we go. Look at that owl. I mean, the art in this game is stellar. So again, the cards cost money, but they give you, you have to buy them first. But these cards do different things. So like they'll gain you some resources and gain this, but some of them will interact with other cards. So it's literally about like finding cards that will fit your strategy. And, they synergize well with each other. So it's a pretty simple game. Now, again, being ranked 29 on Board Game Geek is nothing to sneeze at. Like, that's unbelievable. If you're in the top 100, that's amazing. This game's in like 29. That is like crazy, crazy good. Now, I will say that I enjoyed Everdell. It's not one that like struck me as like one of my favorites, although I tend to be in the minority here because people love this. This is a straight ahead Euro game. It's very tight turn based. It's got lots of resource management. I liked it. I believe I gave it like a 7 or something like that. I enjoyed it. I love the beauty of the game, but others tend to like this game better than me. I think for me, the economy of the game is super tight. If you like sort of tight Euros where everything is tight with resources and money, and you think, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to get any of this stuff done, where in the end you actually do because you get more and more turns each round, more and more things to do. And it ends up working out fine. But if you like the tighter resource management games, I think you'll like this one. And they just ran a Kickstarter where they have like tons and tons of new expansions and things like that. Let's see. Okay, Billy asked, are there any board game apps you like to play with friends and family? Yes, I often play Ticket to Ride. It's a great app to play. It works out well. You can play it online versus somebody else. So Ticket to Ride is one of the best board game apps. In fact, as I'm talking about this, let me just open my phone real quick and look at some of the apps I have that I play often with. Lanterns is a great app. That's from Renegade Game Studios. The game is. The app's probably done by like Direwolf or something. Seven Wonders is a great app. Jaipur is a great app. Let's see. What else? Seven Wonders Duel is a great app. Small World is a great app. The ones I play the most with family tend to be Ticket to Ride just because it's so popular that most people already know how to play the game. Splendor's a really good app too. So those are some. Oh, and Baseball Highlights 2045. That's my favorite app to play because the game's amazing and it helps. You can play it really fast. You don't have to shuffle. You don't have to worry about getting the game out. So those are some of my favorites. They tend to be the more popular games because those are the ones that typically have apps there. Let's see some other questions here. Oh, Matt said he was kidding about the browser tabs. Darn it, that's going to take me 10 minutes tomorrow to get all the ones open that I need to work on for the business, the channel. Someone says, as much as you love Ticket to Ride, do you like Cube Rails games? I have not played a lot of Cube Rails games. I've played some train games. I haven't played any of the 18xx games that are like the big 3 to 5 hour ones. Let me pull my laptop here a little closer so I can see here. All right. So Paulo asks, do you have an idea of what's going on at Days of Wonder? He's saying that a lot of their games tend to disappear. Let's see. Okay. So let's see. A lot of their games tend to disappear from the market. What happened to Shadows of a Camelot? How about Yamatai? Mystery of the Abbey? Those are all great questions. Let me bring some of these up on the web here. So let me grab my browser tab. So let's see. Yes, so Yamatai. So Yamatai was a game from Bruno Cathala, my favorite designer. And, a lot of times games will just... this was a fun game, beautiful artwork. And this was a sort of an abstract game where you're placing boats and stuff. It had some similarities to Five Tribes, which was also from Days of Wonder, Bruno Cathala, but for me, it didn't quite hold up as much as that. A lot of times they'll do, a publisher will do one print run, and if it did really well, we'll print it again. If it didn't do gangbusters, they might not reprint it. And Days of Wonder is one of those companies that they typically only put out one game a year, maybe. Some of the other ones that you had mentioned on there, the Mystery of the Abbey. This is it's an older deduction game. 1995 from Bruno Feduti was one of the designers of this. This is like Clue on steroids a little bit, but it's still a family level game where you're trying to figure out which monk did it. But it has some really interesting things where you can ask very specific questions that can help give you some really cool answers. So this one was really cool. This one I know was out of print, and it's been out of print like multiple times. Games sometimes will go out of print and come back in print. And I think a lot of times what causes that to happen is a lot of time it has to be with, hey, something's sold out, and then it's A, should we reprint it? And B, if we should reprint it, when should we? Because you've got lots of timing of like, when should we do it? Because when you don't go through Kickstarter and you're just doing things to retail like Kickstarter distribution, like Ticket to Ride, Days of Wonder does, you're putting down a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars to print a print run of a board game, and you've got to wait 6 months by the time it's created and the boats go all over the world and get back into distribution. So you're fronting quite a bit of money, and a lot of times that's a risk. Now with these titles, they've been reprinted multiple times. Mystery of the Abbey was. I don't know how many times the Yamatai was. And you also mentioned, Shadows of a Camelot. I've heard, I have no knowledge of this, but I've heard that they will reprint that someday. And I'm hoping they do like some crazy deluxe version and they do like their first Kickstarter with it, right? Shadows of Camelot was one of like the first cooperative games that had to do with like a trader mechanism. One of the first that made that popular. And so that was a great one. So I don't know. I don't think it's anything specific with Days of Wonder. I think they're in the limelight a lot more, so it's probably maybe more noticeable for them. But many other publishers will let things, they go out of print, they sell out, and they've got to decide the tough question of, do we ever reprint this again, and if so, when, right? And so I'm sure Days of Wonder just has to do the same thing. It's just they're looked at a lot more than other publishers, but that happens quite a bit in the industry with many other ones. Let's see. Which upcoming 2021 games are you most excited to play and or review? This is from Gary. I'll answer that with one of the ones that... Let me bring the web up. One of the ones that was my favorite game that I played this year is Renature. This is a Michael Kiesling, Wolfgang Kramer abstract strategy game. And this is a game that uses dominoes. And you're placing dominoes. I've reviewed this already, so you can go to my channel and see it. That's a little big. You're placing these dominoes that have different animals on them, but when you place a domino, you've got to match it. And what you're trying to do is, it's like an area control game. You're placing dominoes and placing trees in some of these brown space dirt spots, and you're placing trees which will give you a majority of, you're trying to get basically area majority. Here's a better one. Here we go. This picture is a little easier to see. And so you're placing these dominoes, and these different colored trees are different players, and the different size of the tree is giving you a different amount of influence in that area. And when an area gets closed, like this one over here on the left here, we count the influence, and whoever has the most is getting a certain amount of points. And it's different. The bigger the area, the more points. Like this one down here will get 13 points. That's the biggest one. Where the smaller ones will get you 2 points. And this game is awesome because it's an abstract game. You kind of have to like abstract games to like this. If you don't like abstracts, I wouldn't say this game's gonna, make you like abstracts. But it's a great one, I think. And so, and Michael Kiesling was the one that did Azul, and so, he's done a lot of great stuff. And Wolfgang Kramer, they've both done some Spiel des Jahres things as well. So that's one of the ones that I'm super excited about that was here already. So if you haven't seen that, because a lot of people haven't seen Renature yet, check that one out. It's amazing. And one of the ones that's coming out in 2021, it's actually an older game that's being reprinted that I'm really dying to see. And this is another one that I played this weekend that I hadn't played in a long time, is Mr. Jack in New York. It's going to be reprinted this year. It was 10 or 11 years ago this game came out. It's getting reprinted. This is the new artwork for this. It has basically some cool, it's snowing in New York. And Mr. Jack in New York, these other pictures are going to be the older version. Essentially, Mr. Jack is a deduction 2-player abstract strategy game where it's sort of like chess with special abilities, where one player is Jack and the other player doesn't know who they are. They're trying to figure it out. And through the game, you're selecting characters and moving them on the board, but they all do something special. One can turn on and off lights, which will make you to be easier seen. One can move boats around. And Jack is trying to either live to the 8th round or escape off one of the boats or down one of the alleys of Manhattan to try to win the game. And the other player plays the investigator, and they are trying to figure out through deduction and by what they're doing which player is Jack. And because you're trying to figure out, because at the end of the round, Jack will tell you, can I be seen or not? And you can be seen if you're next to a light or you're next to another person. So the investigator is trying to basically narrow down the possibilities of which one Jack is, and the Jack is trying to sort of hide. And it's a really cat and mouse game, and it's being reprinted with new artwork and new components and such. And I'm super excited for that. So if you haven't played that, that's one of my favorite games. Period. Let's see. All right. Let's look at some other questions. By the way, again, if you have some questions and you're just joining, go ahead and put them in the chat. And even if you're doing this sort of in the future when it's not live, you could still go ahead and do that, and we'll see what questions you might have. Let's see. Gary, in a follow-up question, Gary was mentioning about Days of Wonder. It doesn't seem to have been the same since they were absorbed by Asmodee. I'm not sure about that. I don't know if they're too different. Jay Robinson asks, have you played Marvel United? I have not. This is one of those ones that I wish I've played, but I haven't, and people are going crazy over it. Here is Marvel United. Wow, it's already ranked 722. That's pretty low for getting it's just come out. So yeah, this is a 1 to 4 player game. Oh yeah, of course, all the pictures are gonna look awesome. These painted minis. Marvel United is like going like gangbusters right now. Everyone's talking about it because it's recently fulfilled. This is one I have not played. If you have played it in the chat, let me know. And I know that with the Kickstarter, you could have added like a million different villains and heroes, and I want to try this one. I'm not huge on the MCU, the Marvel universe. I'm not really big on like, I don't watch a lot of TV or movies, or I don't really read comics, so I'm not like really big on hero-based IPs. They don't, from a theme perspective, they don't do anything. However, I will say Marvel Champions is one of my favorite card games. That game's amazing. And again, despite its theme that I'm not that into, it's a great game. So I have not played Marvel United, but I hear it's great. So that's that one. So let's see what else we have. Again, let's see. What are your favorite board games? YouTube channels other than yours? It's a good question. Earlier I mentioned the Secret Go All. They also have a YouTube channel. Rodney Smith is one of my favorite channels. He also does some of the best rules tutorials. Him and I have been doing rules videos a long time. So Rodney Smith from Watch It Played. Obviously, I watch the Dice Tower as I used to be on the Dice Tower. So I really enjoy those. And a lot of the channels I still watch tend to be the channels that have been around about as long as me or more, because that's when I sort of started watching channels and had the time to sort of research and do a lot of those things. And these days, I'm just so busy that unfortunately I don't find myself watching nearly as much content as I used to. A channel that is really up and coming, that really should have way more subscribers than they do, is Glory Hound. And they do some cameos by doing some live stream playthroughs for Kickstarter projects on my channel. And Glory Hound is Kat and Derek, and they're a husband-wife combination, and they do amazing content. They're very interactive. They interact with the audience the entire time they're playing the game, which makes it really fun to watch. And they are great with the camera work. Like they know what they're doing from a production standpoint. They're also family friendly, and they're really funny. Like, you don't watch their stuff and not like die laughing all the time. I also watch Jemmy Stegmeyer's Stonemeyer Games channel. He always comes out with these things of my favorite mechanisms from this game and why do I love them and things like that. I often watch his channel. I'm trying to think off the top of I watch To Die For Games, which is Mandy Hutchinson, who's also part of the Dice Tower. I watch a lot of her things. Just trying to think of some of the ones that I've watched. So those are some of the ones that I watch. But again, a lot of them tend to be the channels that have been along for a long time here. All right. Taylor's Trick Taking Table asks, favorite trick taking game recently? Skull King, the new version looks great. Yes, when it comes to trick taking games, Skull King, let's go to the web here. Let me bring up when it comes to trick taking games, he asked lately. Well, Skull King is my favorite trick taking game of all time. This game is so good, and it is basically like, I don't know if you've ever played Wizard. Let me bring up Grandpa Beck's website, because they didn't bring up the new art here. Let me bring up Grandpa Beck's. They're the publisher here in North America, and let me go to Skull King here. This will show you some of the new. Oh my gosh, that's new art. Oh my gosh. Wow, that's even newer art than the new version I have. That's amazing. Skull King is a trick-taking game that has all sorts of special abilities. There's no other pictures here. It looks like wow, that looks amazing. I love the new box there. Let me look up the rest of the pictures here from Skull King so I can try to show you as I'm talking to them, make it more interesting for you. Let me go to images here. Okay, here we go. Let me bring it. This is older artwork, and this is from the Europe version. So it's a trick-taking game it's like trick-taking on steroids, because there's tons of special powers. You don't necessarily have to follow suit if you play any card that doesn't have a number, which is like a special card. And there's all this hierarchy where like pirates beat any number. There's also a trump suit. But the mermaids can get beat by the pirate. But the Skull King is the best card in the game, and it can beat anybody, except when the Mermaid comes out. So there's some special cases. There's ways to escape. But one of the things that makes this game really special is the bidding. This game is all about bidding, and you only score positive points in this game if you exactly make your bid, and it's so hard. But like the interesting thing is, like, if you like to zero bid and slough in trick-taking games, this is amazing because every round that goes on, it like ramps up how many points you get if you can zero bid, which also means that's how many negative points you get if you don't make your bid. So you could like in the 10th round, you could zero bid to try to win the game, and if you don't, you're gonna get minus 100 points. It's like very swingy, but the game is awesome. I'll talk about one other trick-taking game. Let me go back to the web here. Let's see here. Okay, let me go back to the web and see. This is a new game. It's not actually even out yet, but I did do a video for it. It is called Faux Diamonds. This is from Mike Fitzgerald, right, one of my favorite designers. It's from Eagle Griffin Games. Disclosure, I do some production work for some of their vlogs and stuff behind the scenes. Faux Diamonds is really cool because if you've ever played Diamonds, which is Mike Fitzgerald's popular trick-taking game, it's somewhat similar to that. But in fact, I like this one even more because when you're, let's see, they don't have any of the pictures on here for this. So Faux Diamonds is cool because you're playing tricks like normal, but when you play offsuit, you'll see in the right here, there's all these different markets. And each one of these suits will have one of these boards. So for instance, even though you see like 3 of the black boards, only one of these will be used each game. You see different values there. And there's a tracker that sits on one of these values. So let's say it's sitting on the 7. If you slough, meaning like you play a suit that, if someone leads with this suit and you don't have that suit, you can play, you could play another suit, and whatever suit you do play, if you play off suit, you'll get that amount. And the cool thing is, what this is it's a fluctuating market where you're trying to time the right time to either win a trick of that suit or throw a different suit because you can't follow to time the fluctuating market. And so it's really fun because, like I said, you're just really trying to time things. And you could either like try to win a suit where you'll get to time that market, or you'll be trying to slough to win other suits. And you're trying to do it. And there's these faux diamond cards that allows you to essentially play at any time and win the market of that suit. So someone thinks they're going to play a big card like a 13 and win the suit, win that trick and get a good market value, and someone comes in and like throws one of these like faux diamond cards and takes it from them. It's really, really fun. So I would highly recommend that. Faux Diamonds. I think they're still taking pre-orders on that, even though the Kickstarter is over. That's one of my favorite ones that I've played. Let's see. Okay, Jay Robinson asks, my kids want to know, what is your favorite kids game? Good question. What is my favorite kids game? I have to think about that one. I guess it depends on how young you are. One of my favorites is My Little Scythe. Now this is it says ages 8 and up. So again, it's going to depend on your age group. My Little Scythe is one of my favorites. I should go look at some of my favorite children ones over there. Oh, another one. Ooh, what's that one from Yellow? Gosh, I'm drawing a blank. My Little Scythe is a game that's based off the strategy game Scythe from Stonemaier Games. It's adorable, but it definitely has strategy. But this one's for 8 and up. So My Little Scythe, definitely check out. Pingo Pingo. I'll give you three off the top of my head. Pingo Pingo is a really fun game that you play a CD or a downloaded audio soundtrack, and it has this like island music going. And it literally has this plastic gun, and you put these darts in them, and things are set up around the room, and these different cards are going to come up, and you're either going to have to tap them or not, depending on whether you hear daytime music or nighttime music. Sometimes you'll be trying to hit a card fast and it has a spider on it, and you lose some health. Other times you're going to be using that gun to literally shoot like the polar bear over here or the ship, and those things are like set up around the room. It is so, so fun. Another one, I'll give you my last thing for the children's game, Dr. Eureka. Dr. Eureka. This is a speed game. Adults can play it too. It says 8 and up. Dr. Eureka this is what the box looks like. It's a speed game where you've got these marbles, and essentially a card will come up and it will look something like that. Let me see if I can get you a better image here. The cards will look like something like this. One of them will come up, and you're trying to get your test tubes to look exactly like that. And this is the way your test tubes look. You have 3 of them, and you're basically pouring these in a certain sequence into your other 2 test tubes. You only have 3 of these. This is basically a bunch of players. And you're trying to get it to look exactly like this card. And so you're pouring one in there, then you're taking these 2 and pouring them over here, and you're going like back and forth to try to get those things into the test tubes to get the puzzle to look exactly like it. It is a ton of fun. So those are 3 children's games that actually all 3 of those, adults can play them too. I love those games. My game group loves those games. So those are 3 games that you can play with kids that are also great. What is your favorite board game mechanism, David asks. Good. I tend to like negotiation games. Those tend to be my favorite. I also tend to like deduction games. I know those aren't necessarily mechanisms, they're sort of genres. Favorite mechanism, I'm probably card drafting. I really love. But as it goes to like types of games, deduction and negotiation are my favorites. And I also like very puzzly games, like Azul and things like that. David has another question. How did you learn the saxophone? Good question. I picked it up actually in college. I was in engineering school, and engineering school was kicking my butt, and I needed to take an elective. And I wanted that elective to be easy, meaning I wanted it to be a piece of cake because I was getting my butt kicked with engineering. So I took a jazz history class, and I took the class. I did terrible at it because I was so busy with engineering work that I didn't quite put the work in on that it probably needed. So I was doing pretty bad in the class, and the teacher allowed me he was a saxophone player, and he allowed me to go to a concert that he was playing at, and he said, if you can write an essay about what on stage did I do that was influenced, or how did the history that you learned about in this class influence what I played on stage, I will take it as extra credit. So I went to a concert, I watched this guy play the saxophone, and it was the first time I had ever had music make the hair on my arms stand up, and it just touched my soul. The very next day, I went to a music store, and I said, I want to rent a saxophone, please. I had no idea what I was doing. The lady had to show me how to even just put it together. I took the saxophone home. I got a book and CD. I just started trying to figure it out. I bought probably 20 jazz CDs over the next month. I did nothing. Every free second I had, I was listening to music. It was an hour-and-a-half commute to and from my school in Boston, so I had a lot of time to listen to music. I was listening to music like crazy, and I was going home and literally just trying to figure out what they were doing on their CDs by playing it. So that's kind of how it started. And then I started to learn. Then I actually did, for the first 6 months, I didn't take any lessons. I was just doing it by ear and trying to learn by books and CDs. Eventually, I ended up taking some lessons here and there. But most of it has been self-taught. And so I've played a lot of jazz music. I've played a lot of hip-hop. I was in a band that traveled around the country with the positive hip-hop. It was like a Black Eyed Peas mixed with Dave Matthews Band because there was a lot of jamming going on. But it was a positively profanity-free hip-hop band that we won a national song contest. It was called Cousin Effect, COUSINAFFECT. It's actually on Spotify, Cousin Effect. They're on. You can hear it there, and we toured the West Coast for quite a while, for a couple of years there, and then when that sort of stopped, the band sort of went on to different things, and I started doing board game reviews. So there you have it. So that is pretty much it. So folks, we've been here about an hour. I want to thank you so much for joining. This was a blast. If you like this, let me know, and I'll try to have them more often. So. Thank you so much for joining, and hopefully I'll do some of these more in the future, maybe once a month, maybe once every other month. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this and what other things you'd like to see me live stream. So thank you so much.
Game Toppers not only transforms your existing table to a high-quality gaming solution, they now offer full leg kits and dining cover solutions for the full table application. Paired with their amazing thematic premium stitched edge mats, collapsible cup holders, and really cool accessories, it is a complete system that upgrades every game you play. Get in on the goodness of Game Toppers 3.0 on Kickstarter now. Click the link below or go to GameToppersLLC.com.